Today we are going to talk about food sensitivity. Now, most of you will have probably known food allergy and food intolerance. And this is mostly because there are so many cases around those two imbalances. I'm not going to say disease because it's not a real disease. It is something that happens because how our metabolism works against strange objects or strange substance that enter our body. But there are differences between food allergy, food intolerance, and food sensitivity. And today we're going to talk just about that. So when we talk about food allergy, what comes in mind, on your mind, probably the nut allergy, the peanut, the shrimp or seafood allergy, and those kind of things. And it is a rather difference between food allergy and food sensitivity, because on food allergy, most of the patient will get a very harsh and fast reactions, such as itchy skin and redness on skin, and sometimes when it's really when the substance gets into the body on a very high level, it can induce conditions named anaphylactic shocks, where our body will react so much into the foreign substance, and it can depress our breathing, and hence our breathing will stop suddenly. And this is a life-threatening condition where we need to do an emergency or take the person into an emergency room or hospital, or take care of the emergency ourselves if we can. Second is food intolerance. And food intolerance is something that probably you also already know, because we now know that there are some people who cannot eat dairy, like milk, cheese, or even yogurt. And there are some people that are so sensitive or cannot eat. And there are some people that cannot eat coffee too much. And this is what we call food intolerance, where the reaction is not as bad as with allergy and is not as fast as with allergy. It may take a while, like a few minutes, from 10 minutes to 1 hour, until the symptoms arrive. And the symptoms is not really, it's not a life-threatening condition, but it also gives discomfort to the patients, of course. And on food intolerance, we will see that this intolerance happens every time the person or the patients take the same food. And for this type of patients, we will suggest them to remove or avoid the food that's making them sick. And the last one is food sensitivity, which are our main topic for today. And in food sensitivity, there are almost no reactions. You won't see any itchy skin, you won't see any headache, or you won't even see any difficulty to breathe, because there are no fast allergy reactions due to this process. But what we can see is another sign and set of symptoms that can relate to any other conditions like autoimmune disease or other gut problems, like chronic diarrhea or chronic constipations, and those kind of symptoms, and also like joint pains or frequent headache that is not really arrive after we eat the food, because the symptoms can appear after several hours or even several days, mostly like 1 or 2 days after we eat the food that we are sensitive into. And this type of problems or imbalances it's there to stay until we can manage the thing that make, or the root cause that makes our body sensitive into that specific food. Next, we will talk about the signs and symptoms of food sensitivity. There are several signs and symptoms that we can be aware of that we might have some food sensitivity issues, like such as joint pains, unresolved joint pains that comes and go, specifically after we eat certain foods. And then frequent headache, migraine can also be one of the symptoms, and also digestive issues such as chronic diarrhea or chronic constipation. Sometimes we can also notice signs of diarrhea and constipations that take turns and become chronic conditions. And those are the signs and symptoms of food sensitivity, and it might appear as gut issues, but it's not always be like that. So you need to dig deeper of the signs and symptoms, because there are sometimes signs or symptoms that is not really related to any gut issues, but it can stem of food sensitivity. So how would you know if you have food sensitivity? Normally, you won't be able to realize if you have any food sensitivity or not until you do a test or a checkup, or you go to a functional medicine practitioners and they will give you some ideas that you might have a food sensitivity disorder. And for the test itself, you can choose several tests, and there are differences between the test for food allergies and the test that we use for food sensitivities. As you know, if you want to check a food allergy on a person, we can use two types of tests, which is the first one is the skin prick test. And it has been here since a long time ago. We usually use skin prick tests to measure allergies to eggs, to dust, to dairy, and to mice, and many other things. And the idea behind of the skin prick allergy test is simply to check if there's any reactions from the person after it being pricked with a very fine needle that contains allergens. The second one that we use to check any allergies is blood. And this is the blood test that we specifically use to check any allergies. Next is food sensitivity. To check for any food sensitivity, you can do a IgG food test, which usually has 200 or more types of food that can be sensitive for you. And this is a personalized solution. So if you do have this kind of signs and symptoms, this is the test for you. Now, the idea behind of the IgG food test is to see which food that gives you the highest reaction, because there will be like 1 to 5 reaction types. So +1, +2, +3, +4, and +5. And those types of reactions will be used by your medical practitioners, by your doctors, to determine whether or not that type of food will create a food sensitivity reaction in your body. As we talked before, that food sensitivity disorder is not a life-threatening condition. But if we left it unchecked, then this can lead into bigger problems. Sometimes it's also the beginning of an autoimmune disease, meaning that it can lead to autoimmune conditions. So what if you have food sensitivity? Well, there are several types of diets that are being used right now constantly to treat food sensitivity. These 3 types of diets are gluten-free diet, dairy-free diet, and grain-free diet. And many people believe that the above diets are solutions to many health problems like high cholesterol, digestive problems, cardiovascular problems, and many others. So let's talk about gluten-free diet. Gluten-free has become a new norm that I think many people adopt this diet, and although I don't think it's necessary if you don't have any sensitivity over gluten. So you can use or you can do a gluten-free diet after you are being diagnosed that you are having a gluten. On the gluten-free diets, we are suggested to avoid any types of food that contain gluten, such as wheat, barley, rye, trickle, and also so many pastas. So no pasta for the gluten-free diet. And also some condiments that use gluten as the ingredient, such as soy sauce. So if you are doing a gluten-free diet, I do suggest that you check all of your sauces, your condiment, whether or not they contain gluten. Next is dairy-free diet. This is very useful and very beneficial if you are having a sensitivity over dairy products such as milk, which is cow milk, and cheese and yogurt and many other products that comes from cow's milk. However, there are several debates that you can still use the goat's milk and almonds and of course any nut milk. And the last one is grain-free diet. There are several people that I also handle that has sensitivity over any types of grains and not just the glutinous one. So this diet is the right type diet for them. And on this grain-free diet, we are suggested to avoid all types of grain, which is the glutinous like the wheat, the barley, the trickle, but also the non-glutinous ones such as rice and millet and oat and also corn. Now, if you have any types of food sensitivity, please don't be discouraged because there are so many things that we can do to manage that, and we can also repair and rebalance the gut flora so your food sensitivity can be lessened and the symptoms is going to be reduced once you get your gut healthy again. Thank you for watching until the end, and I hope today's video gives you so much insight into food sensitivity. And you can also check my blog on www.lisasilvani.com. Before I go, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and I will see you again on the next video.